Right, GM, welcome to another Touchgrass podcast episode. This is a very special one for me personally. We have Irshad from the Hashed Emergent team. We're going to talk a lot about Indian Blockchain Week, notably my favorite conference for the week. Irshad, I always joke around saying that the only reason why I want to come to Bangalore is for Meghna Biryani, and that's like my marquee joke that I tell everyone. But secretly, I love the energy that IBW brings. Welcome to the show, man.
Absolutely grateful to be here, man. And thanks for the kind words.
Awesome. All right. I think, for viewers' context, obviously I live in India. IBW was not my first conference. As the cycle worked, I joined crypto full time July 2022. So I had the opportunity to go to Singapore. But I was there in Bangalore in December that year. I feel like my experience over the years with IBW has changed dramatically. I feel like the ecosystems focusing on India have changed over the years. I think the way that you guys have been organizing IBW has also changed over the years. I think in this pod, I want to cover the story of IBW. We'll also talk about like Indian talent, and we'll also talk about like what's the secret sauce behind hosting an event at this scale within India. So yeah, Irshad, start us off, man. Give us a little bit of background on yourself, hashed emergent, and then give us the connection between hashed EM and IBW.
Awesome. I'll start with my a quick introduction about myself. So I lead platform at Hashed Emergent. So this essentially involves the various programs or activities that run, which puts the fund in front of the builders, right? So that's our main audience. So we've been focusing on ecosystem building from the start. Apart from investment, which is our main business, but ecosystem building has always been a priority for us. You may have come across India Web3 Landscape Report. We've done three editions of this, which captures everything from startups, the investments that have taken place, adoption numbers, developer ecosystem, policy and taxes and regulations. So it's like your every year report to know how much have we progressed in each of these different areas, right? And apart from that, we've also been, under the platform, we also lead our programs with, let's say, Incubase, which, Rachit, you've been part of the recent program that we hosted the base. It was an incubator program with Aptos Accelerator, a bunch of such incubators slash accelerators. And of course, IBW is another major initiative that I lead. I'm probably like the biggest because it really is time consuming. So that's what I do at Hashed Emergent. For those of you who are not aware of what Hashed Emergent does, so we are a venture capital firm that invests in blockchain startups from emerging markets. India has been a primary focus for us. About 80% of our investments have been in startups from India. But outside of that, we have one team member in Africa. We've invested in Africa as well. So that's what we do. We write check sizes anywhere from $200,000 to $2 million. So that's from your pre-seed to seed stages. So that's a quick intro about Hashed Emergent. And should I jump into IBW from
I
here?
think I
Just
think
like
I think I'll pause you there. Um, like I've known you for a while. I know that you were there in like the starting days when IBW was just a concept. Tell us the story of how it went from an idea to like, okay, we're actually doing this.
Okay, no, this is a very interesting one, and I think we probably I don't remember speaking about this in public before at all. I'll just like touch upon some of the things that led to this, right? So you may be aware. So Hashed Emergent is part of Hashed, which is the crypto fund from Korea. So they've been there since 2016, and for Hashed Emergent, it's been about like 4 years that we set it up in India. Bangalore's where our headquarters are. But Hashed has been a co-host of Korea Blockchain Week for the last 7 years, and just this year is when they did not, actually take part in KBW. So this sort of has always been at the, it's on top of our minds because Hashed policy. I mean, strategy was apart from investment, they also focus on growing the ecosystem because everything is new. We need to do our part in like bringing more and more people to this space, right? So that was our inspiration because Hash been doing so well, and we saw the value that it brought to Korea, right? Because everybody, like, we all would travel to KBW, like, so many of us, and even internally, just like brings in a lot of awareness. That's why you see like crypto education is like super high in Korea, right? So this got us thinking as to like, like we probably should do something like this one day, right? Like, if you were to, and one fine day, I think this is in 2023, like early 2023. So Tak Lee, who's our managing partner and CEO, He just dropped a message saying, "Hey guys, how about we host India's flagship event?" Right? Just a thought, and everyone was just like, "Yeah, that sounds like a plan." Because I think, see, if we look at any country, there are these events. Every country is known for it. Like we look at Singapore and Token 2049, and few other countries like that, and it does its job really well. Because if not for Token, would so many of us go to Singapore during that 1 week where there are like 500 plus events? Probably not. Most people probably not. So this is why we felt that okay, India does not have that. Of course, India Blockchain Week has been happening even before we started the conference in 2023 December. But it was mainly driven by ETH India, which was for hackers. It was a great place. They've done a great job. I think they had like one of the years they had about 2,000 or 1,800 attendees taking part. It was a huge one, right? But a conference is different. I mean, it welcomes not just the developers, it's everyone, right? It just creates that, that week. So this was a message, and we all like, yeah, fine, we do it. And me as a platform person, I had to like lead this initiative, and like along with my colleague back then, there was Arvind for year one. But something to note here is like none of us ever hosted a large scale event before. Right? It was just like what, like hosting something of that scale, and I think there's so many questions you'd get, like would there be enough interest? Like would speakers be interested to come to speak? Would there be sponsors who'd support us, because there's a lot of money that we're talking about again? Would audience want to come? Sometimes I just get nightmare just thinking and getting up. We have speakers, we have sponsors, but no one's there to listen. I'm not even joking. Like 1 or 2 times I've even gotten dreams like that. And then I think, like, of course, you have to think from a monetary perspective as well. And one major decision we took was that we did not want to host it at any other space, meaning like any other convention center, etc. We wanted to match up to the sort of like standards we set internationally, right? Like, so we chose Sheraton Grand, which was the largest convention center that can host these guys. So that's something we were clear that okay, expenses are going to be there, but we'll try to figure out how we go about it. So that's when like you come across these different functions of it. Like hosting a conference is there's so many moving parts. Like for example, sponsorship, something that we start about like in March for an event that's happening in May, and it's a dedicated team. It's not like a somebody else's extra role. So that's how long each of these sales cycles are. So we had sponsorships, speaker invitations, marketing, PR, ticket sales, partnerships, be it community, media, bringing journalists, videography, logistics, and large scale production, right? Your stages and booths and registration, and all of these things. So everything was new, and I think it was just like so. I think how we did that was in year one, we split up the hashed emergent team. We all decided that okay, for the next 6 months, we're all going to take up newer roles. So folks from investment team, research team, legal team, finance team, and our platform, we all just like took up different responsibilities, and it's just like 6 months heads down just on the conference because it took that long to figure it out, right? Because we had to convince everyone saying, okay, this is why you should sponsor us. Like we know we've never hosted an event this big, but we can do it. So that's how it started, and now honestly, like we have a separate team that we've carved out. This is we're under a company called W2. So we have a team that's dedicated for IBW, about like 3 full-timers, and then we have about a couple of interns, and I work directly with them while I'm leading this project. So it's a year-long sort of an activity, and so yeah, that's background to IBW.
Yeah, I feel like when you start planning a wedding in your family, it's like the same thing, but it's just like at least you know people are coming here. You need to make sure that people attend, and
Yeah.
it's like a
No,
whole
no.
different.
I remember your crypto wedding that you were planning. Maybe we could help you there.
That's the second part of it for sure. But Irshad, tell us about like okay, when you were doing it for the first time, how was interest from like like obviously as Indians, we're always there at ETH India. I'm going to be there this year as well. Yashika is going to be there. A lot of the people I know from the Indian ecosystem, that's where I met them primarily. How has interest been for like foreign teams or non-Indian teams to come to IBW, speak to devs, speak to the retail crowd here?
Yeah, I think that has been phenomenal. Honestly, even in year one and year two, when I look at it, right, one thing that stood out the most in year one and year two, I think, are the developers more than the retail crowd from an exchange perspective, because we had some big names, right? Like I remember there was Avalanche, there was Berachain, there were Sui, Polygon has always been there, Aptos. our biggest supporter. So you see a lot of like layer ones and layer twos, like just being there. So I think that was super helpful, and we saw the same sort of an interest coming from speakers too. Although I have to say that a bunch of them were not ready to like come to India IRL. It was mostly like virtual, and we had to like even accept like about like about like each conference we've had like two virtual sessions too. But these were some of the biggest names, right? We had like Vitalik speak for year one. I think we had Jesse Pollock speak last year. Dr. Emin from Avalanche who had spoken earlier. But we always saw that India's developer ecosystem probably stood out the most in all of our conversations, and that's why they all want to be there. Like have some interaction directly. Try to hire people, try to spread the message, etc. And that interest we also slowly started seeing towards the retail crowd. This year, for example, we have more interest coming from exchanges as well. Our title sponsor, and that's a healthy mix of it. Right? Like for example, we have Aptos as one of our title sponsors. The other one is Binance. And we also have BitGet and a bunch of other exchanges, the bigger names, which are just about to close, or we're not able to disclose that yet. But we've seen like a really good surge in those numbers, especially after the FIA compliance, because most of them have complied with the regulations.
So, Irshad, you spoke about how things have changed from like year one, but like, what are some highlights that have stood out for you all of these years?
From IBW, right? So I'll tell you. So in terms of numbers, right? We've had the w- first year we had about 2,200 people who attended the conference, right? And we also kept this as a ticketed event, right? Because there were a few other event IPs that were being hosted, which were not necessarily ticketed, and we see that response differs, right? Like because if it's not ticketed, first of all, it doesn't guarantee the kind of crowd you want, because when you bring in sponsors, you are responsible for like having the crowd as well. So it's a big responsibility. So that's why we ticketed it, but at a very reasonable level. We've always kept the price at the same thing every year. So that was year one, 2,200 people. And year two, we had about 50% increase. So we hit about 3,500. And this year, the sort of like projection we're looking at, it looks like we could do about like 5,000 people. So over the 2 days spread out, right? So that's one thing that's a major highlight for us, because this shows that okay, the conference is gaining more and more relevance, and of course the conversation is also becoming easier. So that's one big thing, right? Like year one, hardest chats with the speakers and sponsors, but right now, especially in year three, I think maybe they say third year's a charm, so it's sort of slightly become much easier, because now we don't have to explain ourselves, who are we, like what have we done. It's that people are aware of it, right? Like especially even like globally. And I think these aspects are very important when someone like evaluates whether or not they have to come. And in terms of yeah, I think I already covered like who are some of our top speakers who have spoken before, right? Like in person, we've had Avery last year, we had Sandeep sir, of course, we had Kion from Monad last year, Sebastian Imran Khan from Alliance Dow. This year as well, like we have a good lineup. We have Sriram Kannan coming in person, Akshay Bedi from Solana. Solana has never been a part of IBW before, so I think that's a major thing for us. Yeah, so this year's also, I mean, similar support coming again. Avery again coming all the way to speak in person with the crowd, etc. So these are big highlights, and I think the biggest highlights of all are the sponsors who are supporting this, right? It just like shows the kind of interest that everyone has. Yeah, so I think these are some of the things I can talk about.
Yeah, I think one thing that's also been easier for a lot of the international crowd is they come to IBW, then they will probably go to Binance Blockchain Week and then stay for Abu Dhabi FinTech Week and then go back to the Western Hemisphere.
Yeah.
Irshad, for all of our speakers and like bigger KOLs who are attending IBW, I think one of the highlights for me, I don't know if this was last year or the year before, but we saw a couple of people with bodyguards at the event. Is that necessary?
Yeah, we did have a couple of them.
Did the bodyguards also have tickets, or were they like you had to let them in for free?
That I don't remember. I think they were threatened whoever's guy. Yeah, but yeah, just you just know. I mean, I think that these are trends that you generally see at like like token, etc. You find them everywhere, right? Like, but for IBW, that was a little new.
Yeah, like last year, I remember after that happened, I was like, there were two people who were trying to get in. I was just trying to buy them like black suits, and then you could just come in with me. That's probably the easiest way to get in. if you don't have a ticket. But jokes aside, you talked a little bit about the dev talent that comes to IBW. Is there any like specific advice to the sponsors, the companies that are actually participating in the IBW ecosystem on how to maximize participation in these developers? Like, what are you telling the Aptos team? What are you telling the Polygon team? How is this collaboration working, and how could it work in the future?
Got it. So what we tell these teams first is like to be very intentful about the approach, right? Like, what are you in India for? I think it's very important for any of the sponsors to know, because a lot of times if they're not very aligned, what could happen is the event gets over and they could just walk away thinking, oh, this was not high ROI for us. And this happens a lot of times. So I think it's very important for someone to know if it is just visibility, if it is like, okay, you want to make the community feel like, okay, they want to get them all together closer, etc. So let me give you some examples. Like, for example, Aptos last year, what they want to talk about, or what they want to do at IBW, is they wanted to showcase how big the ecosystem had grown. Not many people were aware of like the projects that were building on top of Aptos. So some of the suggestions we had for them was, then I think then like either you do this through like some high visibility area where on an LED screen you keep running the same message over and over again, or maybe you can create a showcase area, right? Like, and that's what, if you've been to IBW last year, you would have seen an Aptos experience area. You'd find like about 10 startups that Aptos had invited everyone, and there you go. Like, so this suddenly creates an impression that saying, oh, there are so many like key startups that we've been hearing in the Indian ecosystem but never knew they were like building on top of Aptos. So that same thing they wanted to double down on this year, because that worked out so well for them. This year we decided to just go like really big in terms of that. So we created an entire zone for Aptos, which has these showcases, but additionally there's also like a really cool lounge area, and a smaller stage created within that, the whole zone. So we keep having like sessions, etc., like that are focused on Aptos along with workshops, etc. So this just creates a whole experience for them, and they also think about this way, right? So their activities have been going on and on from like the longest time. Like, I mean, when we talk about the year, right? Like from Jan onwards, I think they've always been active. And there are so many things that have happened. Like, for example, the Aptos Accelerator, which we hosted with them, co-hosted together. We had televised that. Episode's about to come out. But the whole thing, and then they recently did the Aptos Winter School and a bunch of other initiatives that Lakshmi has been driving to. And all of these things is just like going towards the end of the year, and they want to end the year with a bang. With like, okay, come in as a title sponsor, get a lot of mind share, and do this huge community gathering at one, compact place. So that sort of like helps them end the year in a certain way. So, so that's my thing to any sponsor, right? There could be other sponsors who are just like, okay, we just want a booth, but how do we maximize impact, right? So then that's when you have to get creative, right? Every time you do the same things that everybody else does, you're not going to stand out. Of course, your booth can look good, your brand can have value that could attract people potentially, yes, but I think if you want to really double down on things, you can do engagement campaigns and activities at the booth, right? Where people come to certain activities, register, and like where you're trying to convey what you want to convey, but through a different way. Otherwise, it just gets very boring. You're just like talking the whole time. Everyone gets tired, etc. So these are ways where I really think sponsors have to put in efforts in preparation before coming to like a conference, and not just like go wing it. It's not like that if you care about ROI.
Yeah, I think one thing that the Aptos team and the base team do really well, like we're close with both teams. They don't just come to IBW saying that this is like our only like investment into India. Like we're just going to come once a year and this is done. They do things across the year, and then IBW is more like as you said, it's like a final showcase. As a joke, I've been telling the Aptos boys that they need to do like a javelin throwing competition as like a side event to IBW. They've just been saying, I'm pretty sure that's something that the team could organize. Like just throw some javelins.
I
But
mean,
I,
yeah.
I think I think what they do in terms of the global representation for India, I feel really proud when Avery talks about how much developer talent that he's seeing within India as well. I think that's really awesome. I think one thing also that a lot of people under index when they come to an conference like IBW. Uh, I met Sandeep for the first time at IBW. Like I didn't know him personally. I just it was like an inspirational moment because my journey to crypto was Polygon had done like a crypto event in my college, and then this like okay, that was my gateway. And then I always knew of Sandeep. I'd never seen him or seen him so That was the first time I saw him in person. It was like a full circle moment for me. Anyone who's sort of trying to get into the ecosystem, you see so many different figureheads. Like I saw Hitesh last year, was there, Kasif Bhai was there. You end up seeing a lot more people, and you end up interacting with so many different people. It's unbelievable. Do you have any advice on how the attendees can capitalize on their experience with IBW?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think there are like certain different types of attendees. Like one is like the newbies, absolute new to crypto. I think they're the ones who can probably make the best out of this whole space, right? Because you're not just coming to like an event with 200 people. Here we're talking about like thousands of people, like upwards of 3,000 at any point in time, which is huge. And I think this is the best way probably for them to like learn a little about the culture, like, subconsciously, right? Like for example, any other business conference you go to, everyone's just like suited and booted, coming, like in formals, etc. But here, that it's very easy to pick up on something that's like, okay, it's different, right? It's very different. So I think experiencing culture, meeting new people, like you said, like everyone, I think you make new friends, especially if you want to like go deeper into the space. There's so many different people to meet. You interact with sponsors on their booths. Okay, what do you do? We have like a 50 plus sponsors, and most of them like being like top names in the space, coming all the way to India and being there to like interact with you. And of course the speaker sessions that we've curated, this also like gives one, at least an introduction to like newer topics. It's like, okay, I can just go back home and like try to like dive deep, because it's one thing that we say that, okay, I want to like really like, I can just find that all of them on YouTube. But when you're there, when you have like 2 days of like just, you just like forced, sometimes you're just tired and you just want to sit, you just automatically absorb everything that's going on. And of course the demo day can be a great place as well, where you get to see the different use cases that are being built right now, like what are some of the top startups in India building, right? Like who are showcasing the projects. So that can be, we're doing a big one this time on the main stage, in fact, with a minimum investment promised of $250,000 from Hash to Merchant. And we have some of the biggest partners, that's Aptos, Avalanche, and um, uh, who did I miss? Polygon. Sorry. So some of the biggest partners who are running the demo day. So I think that's how we can think about it. For the experienced ones, I mean, there are also like a bunch of people who've already visited a lot of other conferences outside. Even they have their questions. Okay, why should I do it? And I've met different people, but I think it's a great place for even these guys to get a sense of the different kinds of attendees, like meet people, just to get a sense of like, okay, there are these kind of attendees, these kind of, just I think helps you do more. And of course, you can also do your part in terms of getting others onboarded. And I think one of the bigger things more experienced folks can get is like, understand global perception on India, right? Like what brings them to India? Why are they here in India? What do they want? What are they trying to seek? Right. So these kind of things I think can really grow someone's perspective. And of course, to the global community who's coming down to India, I think it's people generally do that to like get a pulse of the Indian market at very grassroots level. We get a lot of questions about like, okay, what is the percentage of foreigners versus Indians? Like, so for us, it's somewhere around like 20% being foreigners, about 80% being Indians. So people just get very excited hearing that, because they're like, we go to conference to meet people from that country. We don't want to again meet the global crowd, etc. So I think that way it is serving the purpose to really put India on the stage, right? To represent India that way.
Yeah, I think one thing that I've heard a lot of, just Irshad, giving you the flip side of that entire experience. I feel like a lot of people who I've met who are like new to the space, who go to Singapore, who go to like a closer conference in Southeast Asia, they end up telling me that IBW feels a lot more easy because they're able to talk to people in their native language. They're able to connect with people because we're all Indians in that aspect. One thing that I've been telling our wormhole fellows is IBW is actually a great place to create content, and you can just get on the ground with your phone, just buy a mic. You have all these big hitters in one place. You like, if you go up to Avery and you're like, Avery, can I just get 1 minute just to record a quick video with you? He's not going to say no, or he might say no, and you end up with another Atlas team member, but you get some content out of it. So yeah, I think there are multiple aspects of how any attendee can capitalize. I think the other thing that I have noticed a lot in IBW, I think one perception that I've trying to be changing whenever I talk to people a lot is, if you're talking to someone and it's someone new, try to build a relationship. Like I have this joke whenever I talk to someone who's a lot younger than me, who's also Indian, who's a developer. Like the third thing they'll ask me is, "Hey, can I get a grant?" I'm like, "No, bro. Like, I'm sorry, that's not how it works. You have to do something. So stop doing that. I think. Um, but yeah, Arshad, I think sort of flipping gears. Uh, do you think is there like a gray space in terms of like the crypto Indian ecosystem that you think okay, this is something that we need to focus a lot more on? My answer to this is like the retail aspect of it. I think with the centralized exchange uncertainty in India, it's just been very hard for us to onboard a lot of retail crowd. But how do you guys think about it? Obviously, you have a lot more experience with dealing with devs, retail on the ground, hosting such experiences.
Yeah, yeah. No, it's a good question. So, um, I think uh, I probably would, like call the biggest hindrance that we may have right now could be regulations, because I think. Um, Let me start from a founder's perspective, right? So in India, the two biggest challenges a founder would face would be one, capital, and number two, just general access or just distribution, let's say. Uh, but on the capital topic here, there are two ways again to raise. Because one is from the private market. That's where venture capital firms like us come into picture. But you know the total number of such VCs who operate in India. It's just like a handful or nothing. I think we're the most active by far, and then you'd see like a couple of other names. But you don't see the traditional Web 2 VCs invest in this space anymore. They did try for some time, but when regulations, are still stringent, it discourages anybody to like put in money. So naturally, when there is lesser risk capital that's available, we go. Founders obviously end up like shutting down the projects, etc. So I really think when regulations ease up, of course, I'm not just saying that it just can be done that way, right? Of course, India is taking following suit of like whatever's happening in the US right now. But hopefully, if things ease up, there's more risk capital that's available, which should automatically bring in more and more founders to be able to sustain the projects that they've started, and it could also pull more and more Web 2 founders. Right? We should not forget that India is the third largest startup ecosystem in the world, in the Web 2 world. That's a big one, right? And so Indians are definitely not weak in like in building companies, top class companies, etc. It's just that this thing could be discouraging still, even to all of those Web 2 guys. Why should they move here? Because if they do this, then suddenly they have to change the base. They have to probably work out of Dubai and do all of those changes. So it does discourage people. So I think when that eases up, it's going to be like a huge push to like what can come out of India in the Web3 space. So that's why I think we just have to be a little more patient, because we already have a lot of potential. You've been seeing some stats come from chain analysis and electric capital and all of these things. We know that we are poised to like do really well in this space, but I think it's just a matter of time when things just get easier for us. So that and maybe that could also ease up on the other side, the retail side of it too, right? Like, because we're taxing it so heavily at 30%, and this again discourages everybody, like, and like probably again some ease of regulation on that side as well can onboard like a lot more new yeah,
Yeah.
liquidity as well.
Do you, just out of curiosity, have you guys ever had any regulatory person take interest in IBW in terms of, hey, I want to come here? Has that been a conversation?
Yeah, yeah. So this year, in fact, we just yesterday confirmed the IT minister from Karnataka, who's coming in as one of the keynote speakers on day two to open. So that's a big one, because it was not that easy to just convince these guys. In fact, like we've started focusing a little more on the government bodies and regulatory side as well. So we have Métis Startup Hub CEO also coming down to speak. So even KDM from Karnataka, we're trying to have some sort of an association, and this also extends to like different aspects such as industry associations, startup bodies, etc. So we're just trying to like grow the pie here, trying to onboard more and more people to the space. So yeah, regulation wise, that's been an interest. Year one, we've had some interest, but year two was not so much. But this time, it seems like we're doing good. So this also automatically attracts the mainstream media as well. So we're having journalists from all of those, your TOI, Money Control, and Economic Times, etc., come down. So I think this will have a ripple effect, because now you have like ministers taking part in this.
had a follow-up question, Ishad, which is a little bit different. And according to the audience perspective, I've seen like when I was a student in college, a lot of people would miss their exams and come to IBW. I've seen that. Then I have also been in the space, like I was working with the ecosystem project at Aptos, and we were involved in the like the Aptos experience. And then also I saw a lot of people coming in, and there's huge interest. What I'm trying to say is it's always been valuable. How is this experience curated? Like, do you go on a top-down approach, make it valuable for the top-level people, like investors and all, and then it makes sense for everyone else as well? Or is there special thought given to students, developers, maybe small, like junior level builders, and then everyone?
Yeah, so how we go about it is that we make things easier for like students to attend. For example, our passes for students are at $20, so that's exclusive. If they just produce an ID card with us, so we just like give them that. So that way we make it easier. And even for developers, we have like a 30% discount for any developer signing up, because we think that when there are sponsors coming and looking to connect with more and more devs, then we also have to make sure that it gets easier to have some of these devs. But honestly, in terms of let's say curating the agenda for like keeping each of these guys in mind. Let's say a student, how would they look at? Because it just gets much harder then, because when we're thinking about student, these are probably like very new into the space. So, but we can't dilute the agenda for others, make it super simple to understand. Okay, what is Web3, right? So some areas it's just harder, but we're trying to make it as welcoming as we can. And I think this gets sorted when depending on the different kinds of sponsors, right? Because some people are looking for devs, some people are looking for more, like maybe some institution focused discussions. So what I've noticed is generally even the founders, we try to attract founders as well, like anyone building in this space who's been a founder and has been in the space for a bit. We also like invite them at a much more discounted prices. So we see that it all just works out organically, because since it's not just about like let's say 300 to 500 people in this space, it's like a huge space with a lot of people around. So I think it just like organically works out. Like if I am, let's say, a founder, I know the kind of interest that I have, I'm automatically attracted to a certain set of booths and certain set of speaker sessions. I may just go like wait outside, like when a speaker's done, I'll just go say hi, because my objective there is to like probably meet Avery or someone, right? So I think it just like takes shape in different ways, but we try as much as we can to like curate it. But sometimes because of the sheer volume of like activities involved here, uh, we may just not have enough time for that.
It's just chaos that works out perfectly, but that's cute as well. Thank you for taking out the time and speaking to us, Richard. We've already shot of the 30-minute mark, so we would love to close this now in case you don't have any closing thoughts.
No, absolutely. Closing thoughts are simple. So we have just been like heads down working on this. Generally, when it reaches this part of the year, we're all like gone into it. Right? We forget weekends. You know how it is. So there's a lot of efforts that are going on right now. Like it's a huge coordination exercise with different partners. I mean, we're just like going through it. We have about like maybe about 250 plus different partners that we work with, like including speakers, sponsors, and everybody else. So it's a huge exercise. And so there's a lot of thought, etc. So closing thoughts is, I think conferences like this definitely help India, help spread the awareness within the country, and also bring in a lot of global attention. So I've made this appeal on social before, but like I think if each of us treat this as our responsibility, to try and bring one newer person who's not been in the crypto space before, and just introduce them to what the blockchain week looks like. They can attend a lot of side events, etc. Get a sense of what's happening. I think this is the easiest way for us to like start doubling down on like, okay, let's reach mass adoption somehow, right? And I think all of these things will have a huge flywheel effect in making India like probably a superpower in the near term.
Awesome. Thanks so much for joining us, Irshad. We're excited to meet you in person at IBW. And yeah, no, my only one suggestion to everyone is if you're going to Bangalore, definitely eat Meghna biryani. It's like the best biryani I've ever had.
Let's go for it.
All right. Thanks so much, Irshad.
Let's do it. Thank you, guys.